Simply put, women lack strategic thinking. As he shook hands with Tyler Mason, Director Hamilton's voice reverberated across the conference room. I watched in disbelief as my male coworker took pride in claiming my merchandising plan as his own. That's why we need leaders like you driving our merchandising initiatives. The identical tactic that, during the previous quarter, had raised our area sales by 20%. I had spent months creating the identical plan, examining trends in consumer behavior, and testing it in 3 distinct markets. A mixture of anger and incredulity heated my face, but I made myself grin professionally. I'm Simone Briggs, and I'm 31 years old. I've been employed by Gravora Group, one of the biggest retail chains in the Southeast, for the last 4 years as a merchandising analyst. I have a business analytics degree from Auburn University with honors, and I've always taken satisfaction in my ability to identify market trends before they become significant. Most people would find the charts, graphs, and consumer statistics that covered the walls of my cubicle mind-numbingly uninteresting, but to me, they conveyed tales of progress and possibility. I was sitting in a conference room in Birmingham, Alabama, watching my career goals fall apart while Tyler got a promotion that should have gone to me, and I wasn't blind to the irony. I had written every slide, examined every piece of information, and developed every suggestion, so the presentation he just gave was perfect. I had seized the opportunity when our department head requested volunteers to create a fresh approach to merchandising for the approaching holiday season. I was aware that this was my chance to demonstrate my suitability for the senior analyst role that had been hovering over me for several months. 3 weeks ago, Tyler came up to me and asked if he could work with me on the project. I shared everything with him, including my pricing strategies, competitor analysis, consumer surveys, and even my presentation template, because I believed he was sincere in wanting to learn from my research techniques. He claimed that make a significant contribution to the project, he wanted to comprehend my methodology. I believed him because I was gullible enough. Something chilly settled in my chest as I watched Director Hamilton announce Tyler's instant elevation to senior merchandising manager. This was about a pattern I had observed but attempted to ignore, not merely about a stolen presentation or a lost promotion. When my ideas worked, they somehow became collaborative endeavors, but when they needed improvement, they were all mine. How my accomplishments were rarely recognized in public settings, but were lauded in private. The way promising ideas that had genuine potential were inexplicably transferred to male coworkers. Tyler received heartfelt congratulations at the end of the meeting, and I knew that if I spoke up now, I would just a bitter loser. Maturing. I discovered early on in a small hamlet outside of Mobile that my keys to success would be intelligence and hard effort. My mother often told me that I would have to work twice as hard as men to receive half the recognition, and my father worked 2 jobs to pay for my college education. As I sat in that conference room, I understood that she had been preparing me for this very moment, even though I had felt she was being too negative. Tyler and I had never had an easy relationship. I was given the task of assisting him in becoming familiar with our procedures and systems when he joined our company 18 months ago. He had an MBA from a renowned university that opened doors for me that I supposedly couldn't, and he was charming and well-connected through his fraternity network. At first, I thought we would get along well as coworkers since I appreciated his intellectual background. I valued having someone who seemed truly engaged in the analytical aspect of retail merchandising, and he frequently asked insightful questions about my work. In retrospect, I see that those were intelligence-gathering operations rather than queries sparked by curiosity. Tyler had been methodically picking up my techniques, comprehending my sources, and setting himself up to benefit from my knowledge. He suggested a partnership for the holiday merchandising campaign, but I had observed minor warning indications in the weeks before the presentation, but I chose to ignore them at the moment. Tyler began setting up private meetings with Director Hamilton, purportedly to talk about our department's strategic plan. He started going to industry conferences that I had suggested, but I was never given permission to go myself. He began incorporating terms and expressions that I had developed in my reports into everyday speech, as though they were original ideas of his own. His handling of our planning discussions was the most striking indication. He would push me to explain every aspect of my reasoning by asking me to elaborate on thoughts rather than coming up with new ones. He said he wanted to go over the techniques later to make sure he grasped the subtleties, so he filmed our discussions. He was being meticulous. Tyler asked if he could lead the delivery of our findings to the executive team 3 days prior to the presentation. He said that we would have a better impression with him as the spokesperson because of his superior presentation abilities. I consented because I wanted to be a team player, but I requested that he recognize my contribution to the main strategy's development. He gave me his word that my contributions would be prominently shown. Rather, I observed him portray my work as his own innovative idea. Tyler expertly clarified ideas I had spent years learning when Director Hamilton inquired about the analytical process. He mentioned surveys I had created and carried out when asked about market research. Only after Tyler indicated that I had contributed useful facts to back his strategic vision did my name come up. I had never sensed a change in myself until the meeting was over and everyone was filing out to congratulate Tyler on his outstanding performance. I felt like I was physically struck by the betrayal. My hands were shaking as I listened to Tyler's presentation again, making a note of every time he'd my work, while I sat in my car in the Gravora Group parking lot, trying to comprehend what had just transpired. His creative customer profile approach was based on the advanced consumer segmentation study I had created after months of research. His strategic value framework was now the pricing optimization model I had created from the ground up. He spoke as though he had coined the precise words I had developed to characterize our target audiences. Tyler's promotion wasn't just any promotion, though. It was the exact one I had been aiming for years. The senior merchandising manager position included control over a group of 12 analysts, stock options, and a $30,000 pay raise. More significantly, it served as the entryway to Gravora Group's executive track. Now, although I continued in the same position I had been in for the previous 2 years, Tyler would supervise the execution of my plan and claim credit for its accomplishment. During the meeting, I took out my phone and looked through the texts I had received. Jasmine, my roommate from college, texted me about a position at Sunville Studios, a fast-growing retail brand that was causing a stir in the market. I would have written off the concept of quitting Gravora Group 3 months ago, but as I sat in that parking lot, I came to the conclusion that I had nothing left to lose. When I got to work early the following morning, Tyler was already in his new office, talking loudly on the phone about his breakthrough in merchandising. He gave me the thumbs up as though we were sharing an inside joke after catching my sight through the glass wall. His gesture was so casual that it made my blood boil. In fact, it appeared that he thought I would be pleased to see him succeed with my effort. Director Hamilton described Tyler's new duties and commended his capacity for strategic thought during our departmental meeting that afternoon. In essence, my effort would be presented to the highest echelons of the organization, When Tyler presented our Christmas merchandising plan to the board of directors next month, he said. Hamilton turned to face me and stated, "Simone, I know you're disappointed not to get the promotion, but I hope you'll support Tyler in his new role. Your data analysis skills will be valuable to his strategic initiatives." I was demoted to the position of Tyler's analytical assistant, using my expertise in data analysis to support his strategic efforts. It was obvious. I was important. Not valuable enough to get credit for the effort, but enough to do it. I brought my application and portfolio, which contained thorough records of all the projects I had worked on at Gravora Group, to Sunville Studios that evening. Although I took care to only include work that was unquestionably original to me, the portfolio amply illustrated the breadth of my analytical and strategic thinking skills. I got a call asking for an interview 2 days later. On a Thursday morning, I was going over quarterly sales figures in my cubicle when I received the call from Sunville Studios. Director Margaret Foster, head of merchandising strategy for the Southeast's fastest-growing retail chain, was the voice on the other line. She said that they had my application in a kind yet professional manner. "Your portfolio demonstrates exactly the kind of innovative thinking we're looking for," she stated. I asked, looking around the office, "Would you be available for an interview next week?" Tyler was entertaining a group of coworkers in the break room with tales of his strategic discovery and his intentions to revolutionize our marketing strategy. He was actually explaining my work to individuals who had seen me build it over months, which was an agonizing irony. I said, "I would be interested," in a quiet voice. We set the interview for Tuesday of the following week. When would be convenient? I experienced a rush of both joy and anxiety as I hung up. For months, Sunville Studios had been on my radar as a business that was using data-driven tactics and creative consumer experiences to upend traditional retail. Their company culture rewarded workers who could support innovative ideas with credible research and placed a strong emphasis on analytical thinking. Exactly the kind of setting where my abilities would be appreciated. I used the same painstaking attention to detail that I applied to my merchandising research to my interview preparation over the weekend. I looked at Sunville's most recent expansion plans, examined their competitive environment, and formulated some initial hypotheses regarding their positioning in the market, illustrate how my analytical method may spur growth in their target demographics. I even developed an example merchandising plan that was customized to their brand identity. The interview was conducted at Sunville's regional offices, a contemporary, glass structure that felt very different from the antiquated corporate complex of Gravora Group. I was instantly impressed by Director Foster's knowledge and directness when we met in the foyer. Our discussion was solely on strategy, data, and results, in contrast to the meetings at Gravora Group, where presentations frequently turned into political scheming. After looking over my portfolio, Director Foster remarked, "I'm particularly interested in your consumer segmentation methodology. The depth of analysis here suggests you understand not just what customers are buying, but why they're making those choices." I walked her through my approach, explaining how I combine traditional demographic data with behavioral analytics to create detailed customer profiles. As I spoke, I could see her genuine engagement with the concepts. She asked follow-up questions that demonstrated she understood the complexity of what I was describing. At Gravora Group, this kind of analysis led to a 20% increase in regional sales, I explained. But I believe the methodology could be even more effective with a company that's willing to move quickly on insights. Director Foster smiled. "That's exactly what we need. We need someone who can develop merchandising strategies that will give us a competitive advantage from day one." The discussion lasted almost 2 hours, covering everything from seasonal forecasting to inventory optimization, and by the end, I knew this was the place for me. Director Foster wrapped up the meeting by outlining their compensation package, which included performance bonuses that were directly tied to measurable results and a base salary that was $25,000 higher than my current position at Gravora Group. "I'll be honest with you, Simone," she said as we shook hands. "We've been watching Gravora Group's recent performance and we're impressed by the strategic initiatives coming out of their merchandising department. We want that kind of thinking on our team." As I drove back to Birmingham, I reflected on the irony of her comment. Sunville Studios was interested in hiring me because of work that Tyler was now taking credit for at Gravora Group. They had been monitoring the industry impact of strategies I had developed, and they wanted to bring that expertise in-house. The thought of Tyler unknowingly helping me land a better job brought the first genuine smile I had felt in weeks. 3 days after my interview, Director Foster called with an offer that exceeded my expectations. The position was Senior Strategic Analyst with a direct reporting line to the executive team and responsibility for merchandising strategy across all Sunville Studios locations. The salary was $30,000 higher than my current position, and the benefits package included stock options that could prove extremely valuable as the company continued its rapid expansion. "We're prepared to offer you the position immediately," Director Foster said. "When would you be able to start?" I asked for the weekend to consider the offer, though I had already made up my mind. This was my opportunity to escape the toxic environment at Gravora Group and join a company that would value my contributions. More importantly, it was a chance to prove that my success hadn't been a fluke or the result of luck. It was the product of genuine strategic thinking and analytical expertise. On Monday morning, I submitted my resignation letter to Director Hamilton. His reaction was exactly what I expected. Surprise followed. By attempts to convince me to stay, followed by barely concealed irritation when I refused to reconsider. "I hope you realize you're making a mistake," he said, leaning back in his chair with a dismissive expression. "Sunville Studios is still unproven in this market." Even though I wanted to point out that my stable position had become untenable the moment he promoted Tyler for stealing my work, I wanted to remain professional and say, "I appreciate your concern, but I believe this opportunity aligns better with my career goals. You're leaving a stable position for an uncertain future. I hate to see you go," he said during one of these conversations. Tyler's response was more nuanced. He actually seemed anxious when he learned of my departure, possibly realizing that he would now be expected to come up with unique strategic insights without my research to rely on. He made multiple attempts to meet with me prior to my departure, supposedly to discuss transition planning, but was obviously hoping to extract more ideas he could use after I left. "Are you certain that Gravora Group is powerless to retain you?" We had never worked together. I had been his unintentional research assistant while he positioned himself to claim credit for my work. His statement was astonishing in its audacity, but I just grinned and steered the talk back to topics related to practical transition. My final 2 weeks at Gravora Group were eye-opening in unexpected ways. Without my analytical support, Tyler's limitations were obvious to anyone listening, and his follow-up presentations lacked the depth and insight that had defined the holiday merchandising strategy. I also noticed that Director Hamilton was beginning to ask more pointed questions about Tyler's methods. In my last week, I was surprised to see Bethany Coleman, one of the senior analysts who had always been supportive of my work, close my cubicle and speak in hushed tones. "Tyler has been attempting to mimic your analysis methods for his new projects, but it is evident that he does not comprehend the fundamentals. I want you to know that some of us saw what really happened with that presentation, she remarked. It's becoming clear that he didn't come up with that tactic himself. Her remarks were encouraging, but they also brought attention to a bigger issue at Gravora Group. The company culture systematically undervalued the contributions of people like me while allowing Tyler and others to thrive through appropriation, rather than innovation. My departure wasn't just about getting out of a situation. It was about refusing to support a system that rewarded theft over talent. Tyler observed from his office as I cleared out my desk on my last day, presumably wondering if I would leave him any research for upcoming presentations. My first month at Sunville Studios exceeded every expectation I had harbored about the position. The company. Culture was everything Director Foster had promised. Collaborative, data-driven, and focused on results rather than politics. I was given immediate access to the resources I needed to develop comprehensive merchandising strategies, and my recommendations were implemented quickly rather than being subjected to endless committee reviews. Within 3 weeks, I had completed a detailed analysis of Sunville's expansion opportunities and identified several key markets where we could gain significant competitive advantages. My research revealed that our primary competitors, including Gravora Group, were following outdated merchandising models that failed to account for changing consumer preferences and demographic shifts. The most discovery came when I analyzed Gravora Group's recent performance in markets where Sunville Studios was considering expansion. Despite Tyler's promotion and his supposed strategic leadership, their quarterly results showed declining sales in 2 of their 3 most important regions. The holiday merchandising strategy that had been so successful under my guidance was failing in its implementation, suggesting that Tyler lacked the analytical skills necessary to adapt the approach to changing market conditions. This analysis piqued the interest of Director Foster, who frequently asked me about market opportunities and competitor weaknesses during our weekly strategy meetings. Her inquiries made it clear to me that Sunville Studios was not only interested in competing with well-established retailers, but also actively working to disrupt the entire industry through superior strategic thinking. During one of these sessions, she stated, "Your analysis suggests that Gravora Group is vulnerable in several key markets. Do you think their recent strategic initiatives will improve their competitive position? The data I've reviewed indicates that their current approach lacks the analytical rigor necessary to maintain market share against more agile competitors. Their strategies appear to be based on outdated assumptions about consumer behavior." I didn't mention that those strategies were based on my original research, but Tyler's poor execution was caused by his incomplete understanding of the underlying principles. Tyler had the surface-level presentation skills to impress executives, but he lacked the deep analytical foundation necessary to adapt strategies to changing market conditions. I was careful to avoid coming across as vindictive while still offering an honest and professional assessment. I started my second month at Sunville Studios with a project that would have a big impact on both businesses. Director Foster asked me to create a strategy for a supplier partnership that would give us a competitive edge in important product categories. The project involved a lot of research into supplier relationships, contract negotiations, and market positioning, and I found that some of Gravora Group's most important suppliers were growing dissatisfied with the company's erratic strategic direction and deteriorating sales performance. One supplier in particular, Bright Hollow Labs, had been complaining about their partnership with Gravora Group and was actively looking for other retail partners for their high-end product lines. Bright Hollow Labs produced luxury home goods and seasonal merchandise that accounted for almost 15% of Gravora Group's total inventory value. If they were to lose this supplier, Their product offerings would be severely limited, and they would have to other sources at possibly higher prices. More importantly, a significant competitive advantage. Show Bright Hollow Labs how Sunil Studios' analytical approach to merchandising could optimize the value of their product lines. I spent several days creating a thorough proposal that included projected sales figures, consumer preference data, and a thorough market analysis that showed our capacity to market and sell their merchandise. Director Foster found the proposal that he gave me permission to contact Bright Hollow Labs directly to discuss a possible partnership. On a Tuesday morning in March, precisely 2 quarters after I had left Gravora Group, I called Bright Hollow Labs, having spent weeks crafting a proposal that emphasized Sunil Studios' growth trajectory and analytical prowess. "We've been watching Sunil Studios' expansion with great interest," said Patricia Weatherby, Director of Business Development, in an enthusiastic response when I reached her. "Your growth metrics are impressive, and we're who understand the strategic value of premium merchandise." The discussion naturally moved from market analysis to partnership possibilities, and within 30 minutes we had set up an in-person meeting for the following week as I took her through our consumer analysis and explained how our demographic research had found important opportunities in the home goods market that traditional retailers were missing. "Our partnership with Gravora Group has become increasingly challenging," Patricia explained, adding, "Their merchandising decisions seem disconnected from market realities, and their sales performance has been disappointing across multiple product categories." Patricia's unprompted commentary regarding their current retail partnerships was what made the conversation especially satisfying. She started talking about Gravora Group's recent performance and strategic direction without my prompting. The partnership we're envisioning would be based on analytical insights rather than intuition, and I explained that we believe that understanding consumer behavior at a granular level is essential for maximizing the value of premium products like yours. "We're worried that their strategic leadership doesn't understand our customer base." I listened carefully, asking thoughtful questions about their specific concerns without directly criticizing my former employer. Instead, I focused on how Sunville Studios' approach differed from traditional retail strategies, emphasizing our data-driven decision-making and customer-focused advertising. We talked about possible models of collaboration, and by the end of the call, Patricia had promised to present our proposal to Bright Hollow's executive team and was optimistic that things would move forward quickly. As I hung up, I realized that this was more than just a business opportunity for Sunville Studios. It was the beginning of Director Hamilton's reckoning for encouraging incompetence over excellence and Tyler's retribution for stealing my work. The strategic thinking they had rejected was about to cost them their most valuable supplier relationship. 6 weeks later, the partnership agreement with Bright Hollow Labs was finalized, and the news shocked the retail industry. Bright Hollow gained a retail partner with advanced market analysis and strategic merchandising skills, while Sunville Studios gained exclusive access to Bright Hollow's premium product lines. Bright Hollow's products had brought in millions of dollars a year, and replacing that inventory would require finding alternative suppliers at much higher costs. More importantly, however, the loss of exclusive access to well-known premium brands would make it difficult for Gravora Group to compete in the high-margin market segments that were becoming increasingly important to retail profitability. The loss was a devastating blow to Gravora Group's inventory strategy and financial projections. Director Hamilton reportedly demanded a full investigation into the circumstances surrounding Bright Hollow's departure, and Tyler was tasked with coming up with a plan to regain the partnership. I found out about Gravora Group's response from industry contacts and former coworkers who contacted me after the announcement. Bethany Coleman, who was still employed there, said the executive team was in crisis mode, trying to understand how they had lost such an important supplier relationship. The whole situation is a disaster, Bethany told me during a coffee meeting. Tyler keeps presenting these elaborate plans to win back suppliers, but they're all surface-level presentations without any real analytical depth. Doesn't understand the strategic principles he claims to have developed. The irony was perfect. Tyler was being asked to use analytical skills he had never actually possessed to solve a problem that his incompetence had helped create. Every percentage point of growth was evidence that my analytical methods were sound, and my strategic thinking was valuable. Tyler may have taken credit for my work at Gravora Group, but the results spoke for themselves about who really understood retail merchandising strategy. Meanwhile, at Sunville Studios, the Bright Hollow partnership was producing immediate results. Our first quarter with their products exceeded projections by 18%, validating both our consumer analysis and our merchandising strategies. Director Foster was so pleased with the results that she authorized the expansion of my team and increased my budget for supplier development initiatives. Thinking back on how my career had changed over the last 8 months, that Tyler's betrayal had been a gift in the end. His theft had compelled me to leave a toxic workplace and find a company that appreciated my contributions. His incompetence was now demonstrating, in the most visible manner possible, that he had never been able to think strategically as he claimed to be able to. The market was about to teach Tyler and Director Hamilton the true cost of their decision, to prioritize politics over performance, and I knew that this was only the beginning of my success at Sunville Studios and the difficulties that lay ahead. In the end, talent had triumphed over theft, and strategic thinking had defeated superficial charm, as is the case in any industry that rewards genuine competence.